What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 new best builds in Once Human. So for every single build I will show you what weapons and armor you want to get. Then I will explain every single mod and show you the best cradle upgrades and deviants to use. And then lastly, we will take a closer look at the gameplay, so you would know the reason behind every single build choice, and what exactly will give us this insane damage and many more gameplay mechanics. And then, just before we continue, thanks to this video sponsor Wikili. So this is a website that I will be using throughout this whole video. And it is a build planner that allows you to create and share Once Human builds. So all you need to do is click my link in the description, and then click this create build button. And then from here just select your weapons, mods, gear and everything else, and then click save and publish. On top of this, you can find even other player builds, put your own social media links for other people to find, and much more. So if you're looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. So let's move over to the first build, which is the shrapnel setup. Unlike other builds that utilize the set pieces and refilling ammo, for this one we will specifically focus only on the highest DPS possible, without using an insane gear. So with our build we will be doing insane amount of damage for both our main and the second weapon, and we will just switch between them depending on who we are fighting. So let's start off with the weapons. For our primary one we're using the SOCR, the Last Valor, with the Shatter Them All mod. So the more shrapnel it hits, the higher the shrapnel damage is, and each part adds a plus 15%, which can stack up to 3 times. Then second we got the secondary weapon, which is the Rescue Crossbow. And for him we are using the recover mark. For when we are defeating enemies, we recover 15% HP and 25% stamina. Then next for the melee weapon we are using the long axe. Next up we have our gear, and for the helmet we are going with the gas tight helmet. With precise strike, for when we hit a weak spot, it gives us plus 12% weak spot damage for 3 seconds. And this effect can stack up to 3 times. Next we have the Bastille Mask with the Precision Bounce mod, which makes that the 6th bounce is a precision bounce that deals plus 100% damage as a critical hit. Next we have the Lone Wolf Jacket with a Quick Comeback mod. For when we are using a healing shot, our movement speed gets increased for 20% for 2 seconds, and it also refills our magazine. Next we have the Lone Wolf Pants with the Deadshot. This mod gives each one of our crit hits plus 5% crit damage, which can go up to 45%, and also the effect is removed upon the next reload. Then for one of the last ones we got the Lone Wolf Gloves with a crit boost. This simply will give us plus 15% crit rate. And then finally we have the Lone Wolf Shoes with the Secluded Strike, which when we don't have any enemies within 7 meters around us, it gives us plus 15% weapon and status damage. Next up we have our cradle setup, and for the first slot we got the Anti-Void. Then next we have the Deviation Master. Then next we got the Rapid Aid, then the Anti-Phase, then also the Ricochet, then Deadly Combo, then Precise Shot, and finally the Special Ammo. Overall this whole setup is made around the shrapnel effect, and increasing our main's weapons damage as much as physically possible. And as far as deviation and food goes, that is your own personal preference, so use whichever one you prefer. And if you want to find this build on the website, then don't forget to check out the description. And in a quick summary, if you want to use the highest damage medium range build that has pretty much unlimited amount of ammo and possibilities to improve it even further, with better gear, better ammo and everything else, then this is the one for you. Then for the second build we have the Wildfire Bingo build. So this is currently the best one-shot sniper build in the game. This sniper setup got his name from being able to get insanely high crit rate and damage and pretty much one-shot anyone and everyone you see. This setup will work for both PvE and PvP, as well as fighting solo bosses. So again, let's take a look at our weapons, and we are using the D50 Wildfire with the Tungsten Pistol AM ammo and the Vulnerability Amplifier. Then on top of this, for our attachments we got the Camouflage Suppressor, then the Compact Reflect Sight, then the Small Infrared Indicator, and finally the Amped Pistol Mag. Then for our second weapon we got the AWS 338 Bullseye with the Tungsten SR AP ammo and the Vulnerability Amplifier, which is exactly the same thing as on our pistol. And for our attachments we have the Integrated Suppressor and the Precision Optic. Then for our melee weapon we got the Long Axe with the Speed Melee style. Then next we have our gear, and for the helmet we are using the Renegade Hood with the Momentum Up. This will increase our fire rate for 10% for the first 50% of the magazine, and then also increase our weapon damage for plus 30% for the other 50% of the magazine. Then next we have the Renegade Mask with the most wanted. This will do that every time an enemy is marked, our attacks get 5% damage for 8 seconds. Then for our chest we have the Bastille Top with the Munitions Amplifier. This will give us plus 9% flat damage increase. Then for the legs we got the Bastille Pants with the 3 strikes. This mod for the first 3 hits after reloading will increase our weak spot damage by 50%. Then for the hands we have the Renegade Gloves with the Munitions Amplifier. This will again give us from 6 to 15% damage to all kinds of DPS types. And finally we got the Old Huntsman Boots with Covered Advance. If we don't take any damage, then we get plus 20% damage increase for the next 30 seconds. Also, as we're using the 2 armor sets, so for the 3-piece Renegade set we get 15% reload speed, then 10% weak spot damage, and we also gain the Archer Focus. And then for the 2-piece Bastille set, we get that when our HP is above 70%, our weapon damage is increased by 10%, and then also we get 20% reload speed. Next we have our Cradle setup, and we are using the Anti-Regen, the Anti-Phase, then Tactical Combo, then Deviation Master, then the Steady Hand, then the Bounty Hunter, then Fortress Link, and then finally the Lone Walker. This overall setup is made to increase our pistols and sniper damage, so we would get that one-shot capability. And finally then for the food choice and deviant is again up to each player. I really like the Lone Wolf's Whisper deviant, and for food you can go with a mixed fried hot dog or perhaps the bone and deviated sausage. So in a quick summary, if you want to use an insane high damage build that will one-shot weak enemies and destroy bosses in few seconds, then this is the one for you. And now for the last and final build, we have the Power Surge. This build is all about shocking your enemies into submission. The Power Surge deals status damage based on 50% of your PSI intensity, and applies a nasty accuracy debuff for 6 seconds. Sure, it can crit or hit weak spots, but its huge potential is that the damage doesn't get reduced with a distance, so you can use close quarter weapons in very long distances. So with that said, let's take a look at our weapons. And for the primary one, we got the MPS-7 Outer Space, with the Tungsten SMP AP ammo. This will reduce our Power Surge duration for 50%, but now instead you gain 20% damage increase. And as we can do this 24/7, so pretty much we get 20% DPS for free. On top of this, we are using the heavy SMG style, which increases our magazine capacity but reduces reloading speed. As our MP7 has a lot of ammo, so this should not be a big problem. Next we have our second weapon, and for this slot it could be anything, so a pistol or a sniper. I've chosen to go with the AWS 338 Bingo, but as I've said, the second weapon doesn't have that big of an impact, so it's again your personal preference. And then for the ammo, we're using the Tungsten SAR ammo with the Vulnerability Amplifier. This will give us 8% vulnerability and increase our weapon's damage. Also for the attachments, we got the Range Compensator and the Large Optic Sight. Then for our melee weapon, we're using the Stun Baton, for when we need to stun or interrupt the enemy target. Next, let's take a look at our weapon, and for the head we're using the Mayfly Goggles with the Deviation Expert. This will reduce our range by 25%, but give us 10% fire rate and increase our damage by 20%. Then next we have the Shelter Mask with the Thunderclap. This will do that after triggering a Power Surge for 20 times. The next hit summons a Celestial Thunder, which basically gives us 200% shock damage. Then next we got the Shelter Top with the Rejuvenating. When our HP is above 60%, every kill that we get recovers 50% lost HP. Next we have the Shelter Pants with the Abnormal Increase. So now when our magazine is empty, we gain 10% damage for 12 seconds. And this effect can stack up to 3 times. Next up we have the Shelter Gloves with the Flame Resonance. This will give us a flat 20% damage increase. And finally we got the Bastille Boots with the Covered Advance. So when we take no damage, we get 20% melee, weapon and status damage for 30%. And this effect will reset when the duration ends. As far as armor sets go, for our 4-piece Shelter set we get 15% damage reduction, then plus 1% of every elemental damage, which can stack up to 20 times. And then from the 1-piece Bastille set, we get that when our HP is above 70%, our DPS gets increased by 10%. Next we have our Cradle setup, and this is what we have. So we're using the Anti-Phase, then the Deviant Energy Defense, then also the Tactical Combo, then the Status Enhancement, then Deviation Master, then Side by Side, then the first round blast, and finally the overload. This setup is meant to increase our damage as much as possible, while also giving us a shield for more defense. And finally, the food choice and deviant is again up to each player. I really like the Lone Wolf's Whisper deviant, and for food you can see that we have a lot of options. I personally prefer the pumpkin soup, but as it can get expensive, so you can also settle for any other type of damage increase food. And in a quick summary, if you wanna melt enemies in a second, no matter if you're super close or far away from enemies, then this is the build for you, so enjoy! So let me know what you think about these builds in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my previous top 5 most OP builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.